Hey, what's up, tubular YouTubers? It's Miss Sorensen. Video 15, graphing trig functions. Specifically, let's graph sine. Now, I just want to kind of warn you, make sure you're in the right space. This is definitely one of the more complicated topics. I'm trying to break it down kind of step by step for you because this does get confusing. So let's get started. First thing I want to do is I want to just focus on sine x for this video tutorial, and we'll do cosine next, but let's just focus on sine. Now I've boxed off the sine x here, and really think about what I've done here. This would be your max line of your amplitude, and this would be your min. And then what are the vertical lines? Well, this would be your period lines. And we know that's true for sine x, that it should be a period every 2 pi. And what do I mean by a period? I mean it goes through one complete cycle. It takes 2 pi to go up and then to go down. So the other thing I want to talk about is this midline, right? This midline right here is kind of where there's symmetry in it. All right, and you can see that we hit the midline at the start, at the middle, and at the end here of our full period. So I want you to write down these notes, some really important things here in terms of the shape and the pattern, and we're going to use this quite a bit. So for sine x, I want you to notice that this starts up. And what do I mean by it starts up? I mean literally it's starting up. All right, we're starting to go up towards the sky first. So that's the first thing. I also want you to realize that our first point, this whole thing starts at the midline. Okay, what do I mean? I'm talking about this point right here. We're starting our sine x graph at the midline. And also our halfway point is at the midline. So that's right here. And then our end point, where is that? Guess what? It's at the midline. So this is really important to note. And you might say, hey, this is obvious, but it's really nice for us to say, oh, okay, we're done a period, we're back at the midline. Okay, now let's talk about negative sine x. Where do we start? We start in the same spot, but how do we go? We actually start down. So this is going to be, it starts down. And you can see everything else is going to be exactly the same. We're going to be our first point at the midline, our second or halfway point is at the midline, and our final point to end the period is at the midline. So these three things right here are also true right here. So if you want to rewrite them, you can, but those three things are also true. All right, I created these steps for you. I highly recommend them. They really help me kind of organize my thinking and create a graph. And so our end goal is actually to graph this. And yeah, that's really scary. There's a lot of stuff going on there, but I think these steps really break it down for you. So our first step here is going to be to find the minimum, the maximum, and the midline. And I actually want to graph those. And to start this with step 1, what I like to do is pretend like there's been no transformations. I just want to deal with the fact that we've got a 2 here. So this is just the starter. If I have a graph and I've got an amplitude of 2, you would think it would go from -2 to 2. Okay, that makes sense. However, this value right here tells us that actually we have to take the whole graph and move it up 1. So what I like to do is I like to put a +1 and basically say, hey, I've got to take my -2 to 2, and I've got to move it up 1. And if you want, you could even label your midline as 0 here, right? Because that would be your sine of x. So adding 1 to that, I'm actually going to move everything up 1. All right, and that's going to give me that 0 becomes a 1, that 2 becomes a 3, and that -2 actually becomes a -1. So this is going to be my max now, this is going to be my min, and this is going to be my midline. So you're taking your altitude, this value right here, and you're going to add that to it. I find it hard to do this without the picture, And so I like to draw it with the -2 to 2 first and then add the 1 to everything. And so from step 1, I really like to graph these. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go down here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to write, let's see, I'm going to go down to -1, and then I'm going to go up to, I don't know, 1, 2, 3. And then let's go ahead and let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can always kind of adjust this as you learn more information too. All right, let's do step 2 now. So remember, the starting point for sine is always at 0, 0. It's always at here. And so what we need to do is now use the horizontal shift and the vertical shift to change where our starting point is going to be. So usually our starting point is at 0, 0 for sine. But notice here we have, okay, we've got a -4 and a +1. Well, actually, what does that -4 do? Think carefully. Yeah, that -4 actually pluses 4, right? We're actually going to the right 4. So you always want to do the opposite of this. That -4 becomes a +4. Remember, we keep this, so that's a +1. And what we're really saying is take your point 0, 0 and go right 4 up 1. So that gives me 4, 1. And that's my new starting point. And what does it ask me to do? It does ask me to graph that point. So I'm going to go ahead and graph 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 1. So there's my new starting point, as opposed to my starting point being at 0, 0. All right, step 3 now. Step 3 is to find the period. You know what? I just realized I forgot to graph my my min, my max, and my midline. So I'm just going to go back. That comes from right here. So my apologies there. So to do that, I'm just going to do a dotted line at, I'm going to have my dotted line here. Okay, and then at -1, I'm also going to have my dotted line. That's my mid. And then my midline is going to be at, you can see at 1. And that actually really makes sense, right, that it goes through our first point. That's how it should be. All right, sorry about that. Back to step 3 here. We're going to find the period, and then we're going to graph that. So graphing the period is, of course, 2 pi divided by our b in this case being pi over 2. This actually becomes 2 pi times 2 over pi, because we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. Pi's cancel, and I'm left with 4. Okay, so we need to make sure we graph the period, but use the first point as a guide. So if this is my first point, my period starts at my first point right there. And then I'm going to count 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to have that another vertical go straight through. Okay, and I'm actually going to go subtract 4 as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. I believe that's also right there. All right, so there we go. All right, step 4 is to identify the general shape. Now, to do that, we need to look at what in our graph? We need to look at the negative. Okay, the negative tells us if it's going to start up or start down, just like we remember right here. Okay, so negative sine x actually starts down, then comes up. So what I want you to do for this step is really say, okay, I know it needs to start down, then comes up like that. And if you want, you could say, hey, just as a reminder, it goes through the midline like that. It's going to hit the max right there, and then it's going to hit that right there. And then we've got our, basically, we've got our period right there. So I pretty much am ready to go here, because step 5 says we're really just going to graph using the first point, the shape, and the lines that you graphed from steps 1 and 3, referring to the period lines and the midline and the max. All right, so I know it starts down, but first I think it's really helpful to just put these 3 points right here for sine. So I know it starts down, and I know it's going to hit this min because I'm starting down, and then I go up to here, and then I've got my max, which is going to hit its max halfway and then come back down. And I'm going to ask you on your test to do a couple of periods, so you're going to want to start over from the left here and say, okay, I know I'm going to go like this. I know it's going to start down, and it's going to go to there, and then it's going to come up right there. And don't forget about your arrows at the end either. All right, let's go to the next problem. All right, same exact problem except different numbers here. So we're just going to run through this process all over again. So the first step is to find the min, max, and the midline. And to do this, I really look at the amplitude and I say, okay, I've got a 3, right? So this was, this was a -3. You got your midline at 0 and then goes to 3. But what do I need to do with those values? I need to subtract 2 to all of them. So subtracting 2 from all of them, well, what do I get? Well, the 3 becomes a 1, the 0 becomes a -2, and the -3 becomes, let's see, a -5, right? Let me just check that. 3 minus 2 is 1. 0 minus 2 is -2. -3 minus 2 is a -5. So these are really our brand new kind of our max, our min, and our midline. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to start to kind of graph that down here. Whoop. So I'm going to go, let's say we're going to go, I think I'm going to make this a little bit higher actually. So something like that. So I'm going to have this be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. And we really just care about the -2 and what else? There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to graph my max here at 1. And then I've got my -2 as my midline. And I've got my -5. And might as well, while I'm here, just go ahead and add some points here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. All right, there we go. All right, now step 2, I'm going to transform my starting point, which is 0, 0. And going back, I've got a right 2, so that's going to be a +2, and then a down 2, so that's going to be a -2. So my new starting point is going to be 2, -2. And it's really nice to kind of check that you've done this right. 2, -2 is right here. You really should be on the midline, right? Isn't sign start on the midline? Yes, it does. Okay. All right, so there we are at step 2. Let's go to step 3. Step 3, I need to find the period. So that's going to be 2 pi divided by, in this case, pi over 3, which is equal to 2 pi times 3 over pi. Pi's cancel, and I'm left with 6. So I'm going to put my dotted line down here, and I'm going to count over 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I might go one more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Look, I did that perfectly. What are the odds? I could go to the left 6 as well, too, but I only need 2 periods, so I'm going to call that good. All right, step 4 is the general shape. Just a reminder that we've got a negative here, so negatives here should start down. So I've got a graph that starts down and then it comes up. Remember, it starts at the midline, halfway is at the midline, then we've got to hit our max here. Sorry, hit our max here, and then our min down below. Okay, so just a reminder of what that looks like. All right, and I'm going to start by doing my mids, just like that. And remember, we should go down, try to hit that down part halfway, and then we've got our up, just like that. And, you know, if you really want to be accurate about it, basically there's 3 spaces, so at 1.5 from here, we should be at our lowest point right there. All right, and then I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to do this one more time. I'm going to have this here, go down. Oops, I went the wrong direction. No, I didn't. I'm going to go down, and then I'm going to go back up. There we go, and we're going to put some arrows on these. There we go. All right, here we go. Let's do this one right here. So this is 4 sine, and we got parentheses pi of x plus 3, parentheses minus 2. So let's go with step 1 here. Again, we're starting with our amplitude of 4. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm at -4, 0, and 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to subtract 2 from all that. So that's going to give me, let's see, subtracting 2 from all this, that's going to give me that's going to change to a 2. The 0 is going to change to a -2, and the -4 changes to a -6. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to graph that. And some of you might say, Ms. Sorensen, how do you make your graphs? I kind of get a general idea of what my first point is from here. And then, for example, I know that that first point from step 2 is going to be a -3 here and then a -2. So if I know that my first point is there, I know that I'm going to create a graph that has stuff in the negatives. All right, so let me just create that now. And actually, I'm going to bring this over here just because we are in the negatives. So this is going to be, I'm going to have my 2. I'm not sure I'm going to make this, am I? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I did. So we've got our 2, our -2, and our -6. And I'm going to do those dotted lines. And technically they're not asymptotes, right? Even though, you know, it kind of looks like they are. So, I mean, really you can erase these or should erase these at the end. I'm not going to mark off for that. But just know they're not asymptotes. They're just telling us where to graph. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just graph my first point here, -3, -2. I'll get some points in there first. Okay, so we've got, you know, I'm going to make those a little bit, oh, that was cool, a little bit wider. So -3, -2, 1, 2, 3, -2 is right here. Good stuff. Let's go to step 3 now. Step 3 says to find the period. That's going to be a 2 pi divided by whatever my b is right there. So that's 2 pi over pi gives me a period of 2. So I'm just going to go right through my center point and I'm just going to do every 2. And that's kind of why I spaced my points out a little bit more than the last problem. All right, there we go. We've got plenty of periods there. All right, so now step 4 here is talk about the general shape. Go back to this value right here. It's a positive, so we know it's going to start up, then it's going to go down. Remember, it goes through the midline at the start, middle, and end. And then we've got our max and our min here. So I'm going to go put my 3 points right here. I'm going to hit my max, then go down here, then hit my min, and then come up. And I'm going to redo that over here with my 3 points. I'm going to go up to the top, down, and then back up. Please don't forget your arrows. Okay, now you can see that we're now on video 16 for cosine. So kind of pause, get this assignment done. I know that this is challenging. You might want to watch the video again. All right, thanks everyone. I can't wait to see you next time.